I wouldn't mind talking about some of the, since you're, in that world, some of the spiritual aspects of life and how they cohabitate with being a musician, and the monetary versus the
Well, you got a
creative.
good host for that. This guy does both ends of that.
Well, you can go down a rabbit hole talking about stuff like that.
Yeah, it might be a good rabbit hole.
Well, I'm here at Gateway Gallery, ladies and gentlemen, with Jake Allen. That's your stage name, right? But
Yes.
okay, cool.
A pseudonym.
And his dad, Al Bondar, and we're here just to talk about music, creativity, and maybe we'll delve into some of the spirituality. We'll see. We're in Vanderbilt, Michigan, which is 10 miles from Song of the Morning Yoga Retreat. And Al's daughter used to be on staff there. Is that correct? But, and
She probably still will be active out there. She's still doing yoga and stuff too.
I don't know.
But she's a new mom, so she's really kind of tied into another.
Oh yeah, well there's
Different
that.
kind of yoga.
Yeah, different kind of yoga for sure.
And Jake has been out there to visit. I hadn't even thought we were even going to mention that during this interview. These two guys both live in northern Michigan, and they're very successful musicians and have interesting careers behind them and ahead of them. So I just want to get to know them a little bit more. I've heard Jake play briefly, and I've heard just brief bits of his recordings, but I know that you're really busy as a songwriter. He just told me after we're done with the interview, he's going to go back to his studio in Mishaway, which is near Gaylord, Michigan, and work on some songs. And Dad, Al, has a catalog of original songs and production projects he's done over the years. And I'm sure if we wanted to, we could talk for days here. But let me start with the old man briefly, and then Al, where were you born? Where did you go to high school?
Well, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, actually in Hamtramck,
Okay.
which is pseudo Detroit, I guess, and then kind of grew up in that area. Moved north into the suburbs of Detroit, moved north up in towards the Thumb, and kind of kept moving north. So when I was on the road quite a bit, I always enjoyed coming back to Michigan. No matter where we were, I just always enjoyed coming back. And I don't know if I can make this short or not, but we ended up playing a resort up in I think Boyne Mountain or Boyne Highlands, and asked my agent to book us up north because all my musician friends were playing up here. And so he booked us up. I think one of them was a Shopnagon Hotel downtown Grayling, and we were doing a few different jobs up here, Petoskey, and I just instantly fell in love with northern Michigan and just said I want to live up here someday. So I just kind of kept moving north till I landed in Grayling, and still kind of going up to the UP now, so it's just never ending.
Slowly get higher and higher through your life.
You're going to end up in northern Alaska pretty soon.
Yeah, well,
Northwest Territory.
just in time to watch the glaciers melt.
Yeah.
But it's just been a progression north, and years ago though it was like during the greater live music era, there was just entertainment everywhere up here, and all the ski resorts were constantly having bands. I remember in the 70s there would be 5 places in Grayling that had bands on any given night of the week. That market's different now, but that's what got me to move up here, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, and I'm going to ask the same question to Jake. Where did you enter this world?
Well, obviously he was living up here at the point where I came into the picture.
Okay.
I'm from Grayling.
All right.
And but now I live in the sprawling metropolis of Gaylord.
Ah.
And now I I call Northern Michigan home, but I travel around as much as called for, and then return to my little sanctuary in Mishaway where I have a studio, and working on various projects all the time between client stuff and my own stuff. I'm kind of a half producer, half musician, so I have a kind of a hermit life and a very active out there in society life.
And talking about traveling, we were just talking at breakfast. He was talking about going to Europe, spent California, Mexico. Especially the story about Lithuania was kind of interesting. But
well, luckily I've had certain relationships that have led to going to really interesting places in the world that I never thought I would go. One of them primarily being Takamine Guitars, which is a Japanese guitar company that I represent, and they've kind of employed me as a poster boy demonstrator type guy, and I do a lot of clinics around the world and stuff like that for them. So I've been able to, do clinics all over Europe, Russia, China, Japan, everywhere that I could possibly want to go, which has been a serious blessing.
So that's how you ended up in Lithuania, through that company?
No, actually that was a different thing. That was a group of artists, visual artists that I'm part of, which is called Take Me to the River. It's a collective of artists from all around the globe who come together once a year and do we'll pick out a location somewhere in the world, somewhere cool and interesting, where somebody has ties to usually, and go there and do an art exhibition and a community outreach type of situation, depending on the case or the city that we're in, and just kind of do a project and immerse ourselves in the culture of a place, any given place for that particular year. So Lithuania was actually, the first time I went there was actually for a project with Take Me to the River, which I'm the outcast musician of that group. Everybody else is painters and charcoal and all mixed media visual artists, and then I try to add some kind of audio component to the whole situation.
The token musician.
That's right.
Well, that's nice. They asked you to join them. Is that?
Yeah. I was brought into it by a dear friend of mine named Judy Jashinsky, who's one of the founding members of the group. Really amazing painter.
Well, that is such an interesting story, because Al and I were talking about at breakfast how the approach to making a living at music is so different nowadays, and that just kind of proves the point.
Yeah.
You've got to try different things. You can reinvent the way you approach music and hook up with visual artists, that's a new way to me.
Yeah, it's such a mixed bag of different hats you have to wear, and not only to stay afloat financially, but also to keep getting inspired in different ways.
Well, now you spend obviously a lot of time in the recording studio. He has a catalog. Jake has a catalog of original songs that I don't even know how many, but I don't know if the number is important. But how many is it?
I don't know. Well, I'm on album number 5 or 6 right now.
Okay.
It's actually kind of a different animal, this particular album I'm working on right now. But talking on that point, I was actually, and I was going to mention this to you, I was like in the studio the other day, and I was looking for, right now I'm doing a project that's based around visual art. So I'm working with a painter on this project, and I'm looking for ideas, old seeds of ideas from the vault from the last however many years, to kind of pull out and develop, things that would, had it not been for this project, otherwise just been left in the dust and never developed. So through going through that process of kind of like going through all the old archives of ideas, I found myself going through all the finished stuff that I've been part of or had a hand in, or my solo stuff, artists that I've produced, friends who have produced things, and like I was looking at it and I'm just like, gosh, this is like a span of material that goes over like 20 years, which is a long time to me at this point. I'm just like, wow, I've been doing this for that long, and it's like all of the stuff we did at Dharma, and like all of those artists, all of your stuff, and I'm just like, I just had a day of like total immersion in reflecting upon everything that's led me to the point that I'm at now musically, and it's like, it's been an awesome, colorful ride so far. It's pretty amazing. It's
His
cool.
discography is very deep, deeper than he knows. Should start charting this and keep an app of all the songs he played on. I'm Dad, and probably one of the biggest fans of this guy. So
Thank you.
I think his there's hundreds of songs that he's written over the years, that were incredible to me, and they are on the shelf. Then many of them I'm sure he's forgotten.
So you have songs on the shelf.
He was writing stuff when he was 12, and it was like, oh, that's great, but they're
they're
gone,
I wanted to ask you about that since you're the dad, and you mentioned Dharma Record. That's Al's record company, which you started probably when you were younger. Or did you grow up with
Dharma's
if you didn't, you grew up with the influence of your dad as a recording, artist, and so when you started early on writing songs, was there influence there from being around this?
Oh, absolutely.
This creative atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, I rip his stuff off all the time. But yeah, it was cool because like I grew up. My parents separated when I was younger, so I got to go hang out with Dad, and on the weekends, and like he would always be in the studio working on some various project, and I was always inspired by it, and he never like pulled me into it and said, "Hey, you should do this." It was always just like, "Wow, I want to do that because look at what he's doing. That's amazing." Mm-hmm. And so I'd find myself, when he wasn't working, I'd be in his studio, either making my own sequences in the keyboard and writing these songs, or in rare cases deleting all of his files.
I was just thinking that same thing. I was just gonna say I got the greatest. Jake taught me how to back up my work.
That's right.
I had about 40 hours on a disc, and I didn't back it up. I knew I was going to, and he was hanging out with me, and I was in the kitchen, and he said, "Dad, there's something wrong with the keyboard here. It won't work." And I got to be something minor. And I went in there, and the screen said formatting disk. So basically, the disk I had in there had about 40 hours of stuff that I'd been working on. And he didn't mean it. And it was like the thing is weird about it. It was an incredible different keystroke you had to do to get to format. And he accidentally hit that. So after that, I started backing up my work.
Tough lesson.
A little late for my big hit that was on there.
Did you recover some of it from your mind, or?
Oh yeah, I did. But there was some, there was some client work that I had on there too. But yeah, that was my fault. I mean, I should have backed that up every time I did it, and I just didn't do it. But now I do. 2 and 3 backups.
Tough lesson.
And everything. Thank you very much for that.
So, just going back to Al, when did you start playing your first gigs? Where, and how old were you?
Wow. So my first gig was in church. I was about 7 years old, I guess, and I played.
Wow.
And I was, oh yeah, somebody told me I played a song, and they heard it, and they said, "Oh, you got to play it in church." And so I did. And I remember that I was like freaking out about it. I had first audience, first gig, right? 7 years old, and I'm playing it, and I got done, and somebody in the back went, "Amen." And I was hey. The rest is history.
Hey, I like this.
It was. I got an amen out of the guy. Somebody got the hint that this guy can play. That was really weird. That was a strange turning point in my life. But anyhow, I just started playing. My brother was a professor of music, and he obviously had me under his wing. So anytime something came up and a gig or something, I'd play drums with him. And it was I never really thought I'd be a musician when I was that young, but it always listening to him play and do what he did. It was always in the back of my mind that this guy's really good.
Your brother played the similar genre?
Bill was like I say, a professor. He teacher, and he went to Baylor University and majored in music, and he was a professor of music, but he wasn't in his heart, but he came back. He worked with some greats in Detroit, and did some incredible things in his career, and I always watched from a distance. And then basically we worked for Grinnell Brothers. We had 50-some stores, and he was a district manager for a while. Them. And we used to have concerts, and he always say, "Well, you should play the concert." And okay, so I started playing those little concerts for Grinnell Brothers, and I guess probably, sad as it may seem, I got turned on at the fact that people were clapping, and it felt good. And so I want to do that again. So that, kind of got me going in that direction. But I was writing long before that happened. But not just, it was the art part of it, because I tried to take lessons. I couldn't read fast enough, drove me nuts. So I was always an ear player, still am till today. And the guy that was teaching me, because we thought family couldn't learn from family, so the guy that taught him was my professor at the time, and he just told my parents, he said, the kid's not going to learn to read music key. I'll read it once, and then I'll play it like I heard it, and not even read. So basically, I was an ear player from square one, and that's it.
And then you said, I know that you played with
Melanie.
Melanie. So is she from Michigan?
What's that?
Is she from Michigan?
Oh no, I actually.
How did you
She's
meet her?
New York based, and then when I was with her, she lived in Lincroft, New Jersey, and that would have been 76, 77, 78 in there somewhere. Yeah, she was like huge after Woodstock.
She was a big pop star who had a song called
I got a
brand new pair of roller skates.
Yeah, it was lucky that we got Bob and I with Bondar and Wise back in the day. We were together. We were experiencing some minor success and got on some tours with Joe Walsh and Barnstorm and Joe Cocker and a few other acts that we opened.
Was she at
for.
Woodstock?
Canned Heat. In fact, the Canned Heat concert was in Traverse City. That was pretty crazy.
And just for the people watching, Bondar and Wise, the band that he's talking about, was a progressive, pretty psychedelic rock duo, just him and a drummer, that was giving bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Yes a run for their money with just two people. It was crazy.
Wow.
There's one record, I think it's really there's a live record that you found in the vaults sometime back in the early 2000s that was restored and put out. And you just listen to that thing, and it's like you could feel the energy coming out of that recording, and it's all live. And it's just crazy to imagine that it was just two people doing that with that level of accuracy and because it was very athletic music.
Wow.
Yeah,
And what kind of keyboards did you use?
I had Hammond, played Hammond B3, and I had actually probably one of the very first synthesizers that came out, and so
like
kind of
Emerson
stood us out. I mean, it was right about the same time that Emerson, Lake and Palmer came out, and synthesizers were getting. I probably had the first one in Michigan because when I saw it, and my brother was working for Grinnell's, and he said, "You got to see this instrument," and I said, "Get it? I want that."
The ARP 2600,
ARP
right?
2600, yeah.
Just a wall of dials and knobs and patch bays and stuff. And I remember you still having it when I was younger. And
Yeah.
I got to play with it as a kid, which was just like riding a spaceship. It was an incredible piece of gear.
It was pretty amazing piece of instrumentation back then. Very difficult to program and stuff. All really manual. We had to set everything. But I found ways of doing it that we could actually incorporate it into the act. So Bob and we didn't sound like a duo. We had a lot of sound for a duo. I played the bass parts with my feet, rhythms with my left hand, leads with my right. And we really got off on doing this intricate jazz rock combination of music, which is really strange because it was Emerson, Lake and Palmer and our sound was really similar, and it was almost too similar, and we got into this thing where we go in and rehearse for days, and we'd come out, and then the next Emerson, Lake and Palmer album had those songs, not those songs, but those ideas. That's what first got me into a big believer about the spiritual thing, about passing thoughts through. I started thinking, we look at each other like, these guys read our minds,
Well,
So
the idea split itself up to a couple different people, maybe.
Well, it wasn't just them. There were other bands at that time, other actually keyboard-driven bands that came out. Triumvirate. There was a few different ones that basically all of a sudden it was like the 100th monkey syndrome. Everybody got the same idea to do progressive rock, keyboard-based, and ELP, obviously, I mean, a major talent that they deserved to go where they went. But there were a lot of other bands underneath them that sounded the same, maybe did the same type of music, and that could have went somewhere. But the industry is selective.
Well, how did that sound hook up with Melanie?
Oh yeah, that's a whole another thing for sure.
It wasn't exactly the sound she was looking for, was it?
No, not at all. We were basically doing what we were doing was extremely experimental at the time. When you were that experimental back then, it's no different than being this experimental today. You're not going to be playing at the Holiday Inn, So we were sparse on our jobs, and we always used to say, living like kings, because I saw a hamburger.
I saw a hamburger the other day.
I saw a hamburger the other day.
That must be nice.
Yeah,
it's grueling to hear some of the tour stories of that time and how difficult it was on the road for you.
Oh, it was tough. And then we had two other guys that joined us as our road crew. Okay, Danny and Robin, and they were as committed as we were. So you got these four guys totally committed, and we're going to go out and we're going to make it. We're going to find that hamburger we saw, and we're going to split it 4 ways, and we're going to eat something.
Yeah. Now keep in mind they're in Australia during most of this too, so
really?
Hamburgers were not very common.
Was she Australian? No.
What's that?
She wasn't Australian, was she?
Oh, no, Melanie?
Melanie. Yeah.
No, I was trying to get, I guess I was getting to where the concept came that we changed our style. And the reason that we did that was for work. Yeah. So some friends of ours, another duo, and just guitar and bass, and they were working the Sheraton in Pontiac.
Oh, nice place.
They were good friends of ours. And we were always upset because they had all the work. We couldn't get hired anywhere. And I remember one day the bass player, John, says to me, hi, John Fett, if you're out there. He said, well, you guys don't sing enough. Because we were pretty much instrumental based. We didn't sing at all. So we realized that if we wanted to get more work, we had to start singing. So basically we did that. And that just totally changed us. We went into a whole different concept. I started writing songs with vocals, and we started doing, more commercially oriented things, and till this day, I think it was the demise of our band, because what we did at full force was we played experimental rock. As soon as we changed that, then everything. I will say this: our concepts of music changed so drastically that I had a Cadillac and he had a Lincoln. So we were working and we were making money, and it was like, wow, we were eating and stuff. We were actually putting on weight.
If you play less chords, you can have the Cadillac.
It was. I mean, we commercialized our songs, and we started getting a lot of work. And we realized we were actually good at it. And Teagarden and Van Winkle were around at the time.
That's what I was trying to think about. That
Teagarden and Van Winkle. They were playing in Brighton. We ended up playing a club that they played, and got to know them after that. And they loved what we were doing. And when we realized we were playing in their club and really hitting it off with the audience, we thought, well, let's just do this. And so we got picked up by an agency. We started working all over the place. We were working clubs that usually hired 4- and 5-piece bands, and we could go in there and do the gig as a duo. And many times they pay us the same money.
Somebody would like that, yeah.
Yeah, so that just became a way of life. And then we got the agent that we were working for sent us out to Arizona. We were working in Lake Havasu, Arizona, and a producer, a very successful producer in LA, his sister lived in Havasu, and she heard us play, and she heard something. She said, these guys got something besides what they're playing, She knew, because we'd sneak our music in when we could and break song.
Do some Hank Williams and then sneak in some.
And he called.
Lucky man.
She called him up. She said, "These guys, you got to hear these guys. They're really talented." And he said, "I can't right now. I'm busy. I got Melanie, and she's going to be going on the road, and I'm trying to put a band together for her. So I don't have time to listen to anybody." And then, and we were at her house basically, and about an hour later, he called back and said, "What did they play?" And she said, "Well, what are you looking for?" He said, "We need an electronic keyboard player and a drummers." And she said, "Well, that's what they play."
Pretty cool.
How about that?
So yeah, it was
Then
like
how long did that tour or relationship last?
not long. I really don't even know, because it was when that card was dealt to us, we totally went to a different universe, and I'd have to. Every time I get a chance, I sit down and I remember things of what happened.
my.
But it wasn't that. It was like we were playing clubs. We were supposed to go out to L.A. and audition for that band, and I said, well, we can't because we got to play in Flint. We're like Haverstow, Arizona, a couple of thousand miles away. We got to go back and play in Flint, so we can't come out and do anything. And the producer said, well, send me some whatever you got on music, and send me pictures of your equipment. Show me what you have. So that's what we went on. We sent that out there, went back to Flint. We were playing in Flint on a Tuesday night. And while we're on the gig, the phone rings in the club, and it's this producer saying, you guys got the job. So we got done playing that week and went right back out to L.A. And that's why I said, from then on it was jet planes and limousines and moving too fast, because it was unbelievable. It was insanity, because we slipped out from knowing what we were doing to not knowing what we were doing. And I think, if for any reason when I look back on it, her management was what basically forced me to move on. She had people in management that really shouldn't have been in management, and I couldn't deal with it anyhow.
Well, that's true everywhere, but the music business, it can be especially tough.
Well, I learned that the hard way.
Even when things are going good, it's tough.
Yeah, no, there were situations where I couldn't believe some of the people in power that were basically able to control the entire industry that didn't know anything about music. And that was tough for me at that time. I didn't want to learn about the business of music. I wanted to play music. And I wanted music to be pure and wholesome, and then I started realizing it's none of that at that level, And after I don't know, we went with her. I think it was in the spring of maybe '77 or so, and we toured the U.S., we toured Canada. Then the news came in that we were going to do a world tour, and we were going to be gone for 2 years. So go home. You got 2 weeks to do whatever you have to do. So.
And you did? You went on the world tour?
Yeah, we went on the world tour, and but that like I said, the management wasn't really able to keep the puzzle together.
But you came back with some money at the end of the tour?
I don't know. I want to touch on that.
Oh,
I did come back. I came back with some
question.
money, but not all the money. So yeah, that was a tough one too. The money wasn't really going in the right places.
Did you play the same songs every night?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
same concert every night.
Yeah, and the band was great. The act was incredible. What we ended up putting together was really, really good. It was great, and standing ovations all the time wherever we went. And she was, she's quite a performer, Melanie. She wrote some incredible songs, but I'm telling you, it's a different type of insanity. That when you have all that put together, and it has to be sold. Usually, the people that are in the selling position sometimes really don't care about the music. They don't care about the people that are playing it, even.
You get into a routine that's not about music sometimes.
Right. I mean, basically, you're a unit, and you move to the beat that they set. And if you don't, you're out. Or else, if you don't like it, then you get out. So it was just too tough for me. And I look back on it, I was probably the best place to be. But when I look back over my life and think I stepped away from all that to do what I did, I wouldn't trade what I did for staying in that situation.
And Jake, you probably learned something from this in getting into your whatever situations you were.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in similar situations, absolutely, where I'm just like, how is this person driving this bus, and how is this still working? Yeah, I've definitely been there. But it's interesting to see how different people's minds work and how different people manage situations like a band. And what I like to try to do is kind of absorb the things that they're doing that are working, and then you kind of try to put those into my own toolkit for whatever thing I'm working on, and then just kind of leave the bullshit behind. And because I mean everybody kind of has their own brand of it, you know. So it's
in what sense? In dealing with the business aspect?
Yeah, I mean there's certain things like I mean there's been certain situations that I've been in kind of higher ranks of this business where you can't imagine that you saw somebody get treated the way that they did, and that it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of brutality in that gets thrown around kind of casually.
Now, I don't want to gossip really, but I mean, what's an example of that?
There's been times where I've been with certain groups where I have had to go back and apologize to hotel front desk clerks, sound engineers, and apologize for the way that they were treated as a person, not on behalf of the people I was with, but I'm sorry you were treated that way. It was completely unnecessary. There's a lot of stepping on that goes on, but then there's also, it's weird because the same people who do that will make you feel the greatest sense of love and gratitude. It's kind of a
yin-yang?
bipolar. It can be a bipolar, crazy show, and to keep an even keel in all of that is an art form in itself. And I feel like luckily I've been able to manage myself in those situations in an efficient way. But also, I mean, like, yeah, there's some times where you're just like, okay, yeah, this is successful, but at what cost?
Exactly.
Yeah. So not to go down such a negative road, but but while we're on the topic, yeah, that kind of stuff does happen. But I mean, there's things you can learn from those people that are, that shouldn't necessarily be in that position from a moral standpoint. There's a lot of, some of the most talented people I've worked for in the world are some of the most double black diamond personality types you could imagine. And there's things you can garner from those people and just leave the rest and go on your way of, taking the tools you've learned from others and implementing them into your own craft.
Well, speaking of your own craft, when you're playing original songs, that's a whole different, that's an approach that's, to me anyway, I do a lot of cover songs, from the old school, Sinatra and all that. But when you're playing original songs, how do you approach an audience when you're playing original songs? I mean, that's got to be difficult to get your originality out there.
Yeah. Well, one thing actually we were just talking about this earlier is trying to set the right context for your piece or for your show, or because if you think about it, the context that you experience art in changes the art. So if you see a painting in a certain room, you're going to feel different about it than if you see it in a gallery. So it's like, okay, well, what am I offering, and where does it belong? And I try to put myself in the right positions where it's going to be in the right context. So choosing the right venue, doing it at the appropriate time, things like that. That's kind of when it comes to presenting my material, what I'm more aware of now, because I mean you want to kind of keep its integrity intact, so you want it to be presented in a way that people are going to absorb it. So
well, if people are expecting original songs and they're the type of people who are receptive to that, that's huge. So how do you get yourself into those types of venues?
You just go out there and fail until you succeed and make the right relationships. And there's certain rooms that are notorious for just having good audiences and presenting good artists, and you try to get in those rooms. And
I think one of the best things that watching Jake progress as an artist is when he was younger. He's got some incredible music and incredible songs, lyrically and musically. And back when he was young, he'd just go out there and play them. And now it's basically when he's doing a show, a lot of times he'll present the song and say, this is about this, and this is what it means, or and have a vocal presentation before the song is played, which is huge.
That is huge. You give the audience a reason to care about the material.
Yeah.
It's just like, here, I'm going to play this song. Here's what it might hint towards or be about. And then people kind of perk up and want to listen to the lyrics a little bit more and things like that. So it's like that kind of singer-songwriter experience where you're really having an exchange with the audience and kind of giving them something that's nutritional both musically but also anecdotally. So like, they can relate to that story. Like, oh, that reminds me of this story that happened in my life. I'm going to better absorb this song now and see how that experience translated through the lens of this other artist or whatever. And I think that, things like that, there's certain ways you can present that are going to better impact an audience in certain times and places. And, coming from a background where I have gigged in bars a good portion of my life, I've played in cover bands and things like that, it's a weird contrast to do that and then try to be an artist. It's they're kind of two different services, and one one is in the service of more entertaining, and one is a much more internal kind of connecting to the divine type of experience. It's very powerful, and it happens inside. So to try to package that as a commodity is a challenge. You have to be careful how you do that at the level of an independent artist, especially because you're in charge of how that's going to be perceived and absorbed by the world.
Well, in making a living or making income playing original songs, do you rely on, say, your publishing company to? Does that help bring in some income, or?
So my personal path, like I was saying, going back to the mixed bag. It's like I would say right now the core of, as far as financially, what keeps me afloat is studio work. Doing production gigs, doing mixing gigs for clients out there,
helping other people do their original songs.
Yeah, and helping people to see their visions through in the studio, which can be very fulfilling. And also, then on the other half, about half the year, I go out and I tour, and I've been doing a route between Michigan and Southern California for the last 12 years, back and forth a couple times a year.
And these are venues that support original music?
Yeah.
Mostly?
Yeah, typically. Yeah. I mean, that's also a mixed bag in itself, too, because some nights you might be playing in a amazing Carnegie Hall level venue that, you're having one of the best connecting experiences with an audience you've ever had, and then the next night you might be in a dive bar in some, sketchy area of town.
Playing some classic rock or something. Huh?
Yeah, so it's like it's always a mixed bag. It's very colorful, and it's kind of fun for that. It's kind of like this. You're either a what's the saying? It's like you're either a king or a clown on any given night, and it's just like it's you really have to develop ways of not being totally consumed by the craft of what you're doing in being a musician or an artist of any kind who's trying to actually make it be their financial means of living, because it's easy to get beaten down when you have a night where you're a clown, for example. But as long as you kind of stay above it and just look at the whole game as just this game of doing what I'm doing, there's going to be good nights, there's going to be bad nights, and I'm not going to let either one totally consume my world and make me feel a certain way. Just kind of have to handle it with a level of awareness that's going to keep you going from a place outside of the craft itself.
Well, just on a mundane level, what size audiences do you like to play for? In number, smaller, larger, or?
Honestly, I kind of prefer the 100 people.
100 people.
I think 100 people is just a good connective group.
Sounds good. That sounds good to me. What's the largest audience you've played for?
It's been some festival gigs that have been pretty large, thousands. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe between 5,000 and 10,000 people, something like that. Mm-hmm. And those are fun too, but for a different reason, It's more of the kind of intimate venue type of situations that I kind of that's where I really thrive and enjoy what I'm doing, you know, where you're feeling like you really have this connection with the audience and you are getting your musical message across in a way that feels like it's really translating tonight and we're sharing something together, you know.
Just interject a little thing here. Is the first gig that I did play with Melanie, or with Bondar and Wise, when we joined the Melanie Band. We played
The very first gig?
The very first gig. We played for 200,000 people.
What? Live?
Yep. First gig.
The big one. Well, wait a second. You got to tell the story about the helicopter.
About getting there.
Wasn't this the thing with the helicopter getting there?
Oh my God.
Where you almost died?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm
That
like
was
briefly. Yeah, it was when we just joined. That's why I said it was like totally from here to there. When we joined the Melody Band, the first thing we did was okay, we have to rehearse. We're going to rehearse 2 days at Robert Redford's house.
You did?
What? So my old beat up van sitting in Robert Redford's driveway, and we're rehearsing 2 days, and then the management comes up and says after the second rehearsal, okay, get your stuff packed up. Take what you need. Take whatever you need. Take enough clothes and enough belongings, and we haven't even unpacked. We're just still in the van. And then when the semi arrives, take any of the anvil cases you need to pack your gear for the airplane. Okay, so this truck pulls up all the anvil cases and they pull out whatever you want. Just load up your gear. So we loaded the gear, throw it back in there, takes it away. Lemos pull up, pick us up to go to the airport because we're going to the gig. Not a word is said about the gig. We're just going to the gig.
You don't know where?
Because it's in a hurry. No, we didn't know where. And so we go to the airport. Stuff's loaded up. We're in the airplane. We're flying for a while. And so the band, we're in coach. Melanie's up front with her management. We're in coach. And nobody in the band. The other two guys that were in the band a year before us, Dave and Jay, they go, hey, where's the gig? Oh, we don't know. I said, we rehearsed too. And when we were at 2 rehearsals, we weren't that rehearsed. And so I got to know. So I went up into first class and I said, excuse me, Melanie, where's this job at? She said, oh, it's the Florida Sunfest in Lakeland, Florida. And I just found out that Jimmy Buffett got on the bill, so they tore down all the fences. And they only expected to have 100,000, but now there's 200,000 people there because Jimmy's going to be working with it. And, oh, okay. So that's why we're on the plane so long, because we're going from Southern Cal to Florida. So then we get into these limousines to go to the Sheraton down in Lakeland, Florida, and I'm riding with Flo and Eddie. I don't know if you know who Flo and Eddie are, but they worked with Zappa, and they had the Turtles, you know. And so I'm like, this is great. I love these guys. I've known music for years, and that talking with them, and we're having a good old time. And we pull into the Sheraton, and there's a big helicopter sitting on the lawn, and I told the guys, the Flo and Eddie, I said, what's that for, to fly the bands to the stage? Haha, just goofing around. And they said, yeah, they had to bring it in because they had to close I-75, so we have to fly in. And I was okay. So when it's finally our turn to go, we get in the helicopter, and there's Jake's mom was doing road management for Melanie at the time. So the 5 of us in the band, and Debbie get in the helicopter, and it was one of the nom-copters where we're all in the bottom, but the pilots are up top. We take off because they're going to fly us to the stage, and we're cruising along, and we're like all nervous because we're going to play for 200,000 people, and we don't even know the songs really. So everybody's just trying to entertain themselves and playing machine gunners and stuff, and we're in this helicopter, and his mom leans over to me and says, I don't like the way this thing sounds. And it didn't sound good, It sounded like it was missing. No. And I'm like, well, that's not going to put us on an inferior aircraft. No. So a couple minutes later, she says, I really don't like the way this thing sounds. About in the middle of the sentence, we hear it, pow! And what we didn't know at the time was that the drive shaft to the rear stabilizing propeller snapped. So we started to rotate, and basically the guy...
You thought it was over, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I knew I was dead. I knew we were all dead. And the guys, the pilot, seasoned nom-copter vet, saved our lives. But we didn't know that at the time because we're falling out of the sky.
So he knew how to handle this.
Yeah, but we didn't know that until it was over, really, because I have a pilot's license. I got it when I was 17, and I just think we're falling out of the sky. We're going to be a pancake.
Where did you land?
Well, I kept looking out the window, and I saw trees and lakes, and I kept thinking, if he can get us into a lake, maybe we'll get out. But it's trees. At that time, Lakeland, Florida was just trees and lakes. And I'm praying to God he puts it in a lake, but at the same time, I'm praying that I want this to be fast, and I swear I'm in all my faith was, God, make this fast. I don't want to suffer.
Yikes.
So that was it. Yeah, we were off. Thought
Was
the
it
same
in
thing.
a lake then you came down?
No, the last time I looked out, I remember looking out, and I was kind of like, I don't want to see this, so I'm not going to look out anymore. And then I ended up looking out, and I saw these cows going, looking behind me, these cows are barreling ass away from us. Came over the trees and into a cow pasture.
Soft landing?
Well, what he did, which I didn't know at the time, is that you can put lift on a helicopter.
Oh.
And by changing the pitch on the big prop. And I didn't know that. I just figured we were dead. So just about before we hit the ground, he reefed back as much as he could, and we got enough lift that when we hit the ground, we didn't flatten out like a pancake. I mean, it wasn't pretty.
Phew.
But we're all, I mean, because it felt like the hand of God picked up the aircraft and then put it down like that. That's what it felt
Did you
like.
make the concert on time?
What's that?
Did you make it to the concert on time?
No, we were late, but we did get there.
And you got paid?
Oh,
Never mind.
the management got paid. Well, we got paid double when we were able to just go there and be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's payment enough.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it though. And we none of us could believe it. We're all looking at each other like, what just happened? And the door flies open, and the pilot had gotten out of the top and comes out, quick, get out, get away from the aircraft, It might blow up or whatever. And so we're running across the cow pasture. My drummer, Bob, steps right into a cow pie, which is totally typical.
Well, if that's the worst thing that happened.
Oh, yeah. Well, a guitar player had a couple of bruised discs in his back.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Ooh.
But other
Because it
than
was a
that-
little bit of a
Yeah,
jerk.
well, we hit pretty hard, yeah. But had he not been able to put lift on the aircraft, we would all been dead for sure.
Man.
Yeah, it was amazing. So we get out the highway, and these people stopped along the road where we went down, and this guy's like, we come out there, and we're jumping the fence, and he's going to give us a ride back to the Sheraton. And he's a good old boy, and he's like, you guys ruined my day. I watched you come over the top of the fence there. I saw you come below the trees. I was waiting for a big explosion and stuff, and I didn't see it. So I came around to see what happened to y'all.
Disappointing.
So we all got in the back of his pickup. He drove us back to the Sheraton, and Orleans, the band that had some hits out at the time.
Yeah.
They were on their way, and they were taking their bus. They had a back way in, and they had this big, beautiful bus. And we jumped in, and they took us there.
So you got there a little late, but you still played your complete concert.
Yeah. Fortunately, nobody had any nerves left to be nervous. We all went out.
How did the music go? How did it go musically?
Oh, it was okay. It was okay. I mean, we only had 2 rehearsals, and we got through it. And I mean, they loved us, and then it was pretty amazing. I mean, you're talking about 200,000 people out there. All you could see were heads, and at that particular moment in time, they were all ready for Jimmy Buffett.
Did you get to meet Jimmy Buffett?
No, we didn't meet Buffett, but we were. I mean, that show was Atlanta Rhythm Section and Jimmy Buffett and Jill Cocker. I can't even remember everybody that was on the show, and it was pretty cool because we were all in back and in these campers and stuff, so we were all hanging out in Canned Heat. We haven't seen them since we played with them in Petoskey, but they remembered us from the Petoskey gig, and we had a hell of a party. We were just celebrating life.
Yeah, being alive.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Whew.
Yeah, I think that would definitely take the edge off of playing a high-profile gig, nearly dying.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, I was like, everything's different right now. I mean, square one. So
Amazing.
yeah, that was
that after you were born, or before you were born?
That would have been before I was born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
So lucky for you that you survived, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here otherwise.
Well, speaking of life, when your life is writing songs, we were just touching on this earlier, where do the ideas for songs come from? And is there a spiritual element that comes into it?
Absolutely. I mean,
how would you describe that?
There's, he's told me stories of him having writing experiences that are just total stream of consciousness. And I've had similar experiences where you feel like you're not coming up with an idea, you're kind of discovering an idea, or something is showing itself to you, rather than, some things you actually have to work at. Some things are grueling work, but then there's other ideas that are just like, here I am, which is always the highest honor when you feel like you're able to access that point. But it's kind of a mixed bag for each project and each thing. For example, it's a very abstract thing, but the record that I'm working on right now, at this point in time, is an album that's based around paintings. So there's a song, and then there's a painting for that song. And the artist that's doing them, Jennifer Mann, either she sends me the painting first, and then I work from that, and I have to say, oh, this is what this sounds like. And then, obviously I'm going to translate that through my own stylistic lens, but I'm just like, okay, well, what is this shade of green sound like through my stylistic lens, and things like that. Or it's the opposite way, where I send her a song and she paints it and says, this is what this looks like. And strangely enough, most of the time that she paints songs, they always look like what I pictured them in my head, which is why we decided to come together and actually do a collaboration. But so, for example, for this project, ideas are kind of crafted, but they're kind of prompted by a previous thing. So they're like, here's a seed of an idea based on this painting, and then what do you have that can blossom the best, that's going to embody this painting? So for me right now, ideas are old things that I have in the vault that I'm going to reach back in and say, hey, this fits this image. Or in several of the cases so far, writing them from scratch. And then the other funny thing is also all of the songs are based on different gemstones, which makes it another layer of weirdness, because, okay, well, there's kind of a trifecta going on now between this stone, this painting, and this song. Like, what's, depending on who's going first, who's going to be the channel in between the painting and the rock, and vice versa, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of so there's always fun ways to work that make you chase down ideas differently. And but in terms of natural ideas, there's a couple of books that explain it very well. There's a book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic that I think is a fantastic book for anybody who's creative. And she talks about ideas being living things that find artists that they'd like to be expressed through. And you can either dismiss the idea, or you can say, okay, yeah, I'll take you on and see if I can bring you to your full, real potential in the physical world. So that's a great idea. That's a great book that really kind of embodies ideas about ideas that I feel are accurate. And then there's one I'm reading right now by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act. That is it's kind of a similar approach to what the relationship is between the divine and the artist, and the idea kind of finding the artist. I kind of get this underlying sense of ideas having energy and kind of finding you, unless, it's not always that way. Sometimes you have to chip away at them. And it's, he's probably got similar stories. It's, he's told me some stories. What's the story about the song Mom?
Mom.
Yeah.
I was driving across Texas, and I had a thought about my first drummer passed away at a very young age, and I don't know why I channeled into that for many years later, I mean, we were in high school, and this was, 15, 20 years later, that I started thinking about him, and I thought, if there was any chance of me writing a song from his psyche, I mean, even though he's somewhere else, and just that thought channeled my brain into, and I don't even know. I swear till this day I don't know it. I had a pad of paper and I'm driving and I'm writing, and just words are coming out while I'm driving, and I'm watching the road, so I never looked down. But I couldn't, till this day, I don't think I had an idea of what I was writing about. And I finally got like scared after a while, and I pulled into a rest area, and I looked down, and all my writings were in the lines on the notebook paper, which is impossible to do.
There's some.
Did I give you that piece of paper or no?
No, did you find it?
I think I know
You
I have
actually
it.
have it?
I know I have it.
I'd love to see that.
And so I pulled in the rest area, and I looked down, and it was like, wow, how did I stay in those lines? I never really looked down because it was just, my pen was just going. And then, so when I pulled in there, I read it, and it occurred to me that I wrote something extremely profound, and it wasn't my thought. It wasn't my idea. So that was one of those things that was totally handed through me. And it was a song about Mother Nature and a man's crucifixion and of nature as being an entity that we're crucifying.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And who would have thought that would have been related to your drummer? Thinking about your drummer, and like that would have been what came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. I was like saying from wherever he is, from his psyche, what would I write? So that's why, to me, it was like I was totally divorced from whatever I was writing, because I till this day, I know that I had no idea what subject matter was there. There were just words.
And how do we find this song? Is it out there?
Oh, yeah,
for us to listen to?
Actually, yeah, it is.
Okay.
I've covered it.
He covered it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
man, it's a duet because it's a very theatrical song, and it's for male and female vocal, and the female kind of plays the part.
Who was your partner on the duet?
So mine was an artist named Penny Jean, who is also from Grayling, kind of grew up together.
It's an old brother, big sister.
Yeah,
I
and
think I know her.
Yeah, you probably know.
yeah, you probably do. So she, it's a very demanding vocal part. So I was just like, well, if anybody can sing this, it's going to be Penny. And then my dad's original singer was Susan Hannaford, who is Jeff and Sue, also kind of local, play up here a lot. Also another amazing vocalist. But yeah, is your version's out there somewhere on Spotify or something, right?
I think it's still out. I'm trying to think if it's on our compilation CD.
Do I have permission to use it as? Oops, sorry.
Oh.
Do I have permission to use it as part of the?
Oh,
when I
absolutely,
add
yeah,
the video?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Actually, yeah, Jake's version is great. Either one. It's like Jake really got a close cover. I mean, like.
I did try to kind of mimic the original and just refine things
Yeah,
a little bit.
I think I recorded it in 1986, maybe 85. So
Yeah.
and he's a kid that's always loved that song and that cover. So when he decided to cover it, he kind of portrayed a lot of the events pretty similar to what was there.
Yeah, didn't you show it to Jeff Hannaford and he thought that
Yeah.
I used his electric guitar
Yeah,
tracks?
yeah.
And he was pissed. I think that's what.
He really mimicked the original guitar tracks, but Jeff's a hell of a guitar player, and he plays some incredible stuff on it. But Jake picked them right up, and they even had the same sound. But it's kind of a cool song. I mean, as far as the storyline and all, and it's
It's an amazing piece of music.
Did you ever do any kind of performance, originals or otherwise, as just the two of you?
Yeah.
Oh, we play whenever we get a chance, but
I mean, recordings too.
well, this past Christmas we had a chance to do one of my original songs that I wrote when Jake was born, and it's never
Right,
been touched ever since then. And it was, for me, it was like an extremely spiritual experience to have Jake sing the song I wrote when he was born. It's never been touched ever since I wrote it.
It was
And
awesome.
it's called Christmas Dream. It's on my Christmas album. Basically, another one of those really profound things. Not meant to be extremely religious, but I guess,
And I have permission to use that song if I put it into the video. Okay.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, but it
Yeah,
was
that was
really
fun.
great. It was great. We covered. I mean, we covered it at our Christmas show, and I still get compliments from the people that were there that said that they had like goosebumps a mile high. So that must mean something. But
Well, yeah, we've been able to, since he's had the studio and the record label starting in the early 2000s, like it's been cool to be able to jump in on a whole bunch of projects that he's working on. And then, he helped produce my first couple of things that I was doing. And it's like we've gotten to work together in a lot of capacities, more so in that time frame, that have been really fulfilling. And it's kind of cool, like for me, because he taught me a lot of what I know as far as a foundational education in music production and getting the right performance and things like that. So what I think is cool, like just to kind of echo what I said about working with people in management positions. It's like you take the things that are really valuable and you continue to use them in your toolkit from the people that you've worked with. So now it's like when I'm in the studio and I'm working, basically it's like Al's there too. I mean, it's like all of those things are being implemented through the way that I work now. So it was cool to be able to have that rich of a educational experience growing up with my dad kind of, opening my eyes to the ways that records kind of like to sing and breathe and come to life.
We're talking with two of the major forces here in northern Michigan music. Jake Allen and Al here on my right, and Al Bondar on the far right, or on your left as you're looking at the screen. I got to remember. Anyway, but just to sum it all up, do you have any plugs of any upcoming gigs or any releases or anything like that you want to mention? If anybody's watching this, we might have two people watching this video.
Jake's got a new album coming out.
Okay.
It's kind of different too. It's gonna be different.
What the
Yeah.
paintings, right?
This is
It's instrumental.
Is there
right?
anything that is out released yet, like a single from it or anything?
There are, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could
So I
actually
could plug, can I
implement
plug
in
that
this
into?
video if
Okay.
you'd like.
And the paintings are with it?
Yeah, if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see
Instagram.
there's a couple of up there. That's another interesting thing that we're doing with this right now is we're releasing the songs as they come out, which I am usually totally against doing, but since it's the nature of this project is what it is, it's like, yeah, we'll just put them out as they come out, and then at the end, we're going to compile it into an audio-visual physical package that you could enjoy in real life. So possibly vinyl in and a book of the actual paintings, and maybe some details about the project itself. But yeah, it's that's kind of the main forefront of my mind right now. Every day is that 14-hour days every day.
And when is the release date?
We don't have a release date yet. It's
generally.
not smart to set one before it's done, which we know.
I mean,
I know from many experiences.
Is it a matter of 6 months or a year, or is it a matter of weeks?
I'm going to try to be done with the work by April. That's the goal, but we'll see how things pan out.
Okay.
Yeah.
A couple of months, give or take.
Yeah, it's a relatively quick one, but the time is definitely condensed and packed into very long work days, very tedious puzzle solving every day.
Okay.
So, but it's fulfilling.
And how many songs total?
It's probably going to be about 10 tracks.
Okay.
One thing I do want to try to do is keep it down to the length that it could fit on one vinyl, because it will get expensive otherwise.
Okay, Al, what is your next performance
Well,
or mark in your life?
not really certain as of yet. I kind of what I'd like to do is finish up the songs I've been writing for the last 20 years. My wife and I have collaborated on some songs that I feel are really good material and really good songs. They're not going to be on today's pop radio. But
Valentine's Day, you're going to be.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but you ain't gonna have this out by Valentine's Day. But
They're probably all booked up at Chamberlain's.
So
and
for
Curtis.
those of you that were able to make it the Valentine's Day, we're going to be at up in Curtis at Chamberlain's, my wife and I, and we're going to be playing some music, having a good time. It's kind of like my forte now. Is I really enjoy working with her. She's an incredible vocalist, and when we get together, she gives me goosebumps. So
That
I
sounds
like
a-
goosebumps.
That sounds like a pretty romantic gig too, gotta say.
At Chamberlain?
Yeah, like way up there in the middle of the woods.
Oh yeah.
Delicious wining and dining with beautiful music.
Yeah,
Sounds awesome.
It should be good. Now, I'm hoping we get more jobs like that. But again, with the changing industry, a lot of what her and I do, you won't see us in a brewery. So.
Unless they offer you a lot of money.
Well, then you see it. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, thanks, guys, for chatting. And again, and if you come up to Northern Michigan and you're interested in music, and you very possibly run into one of these guys or one of these two guys, and maybe even me.
Well, let me put
Yes.
my own 2 cents in for this guy.
Yeah, how about
guy.
you?
I'm going to be up at the Mackinac Island at the Grand Hotel this season from May to the end of October at the Cupola. Right
And
on the
Steve
top of that.
is one of my all-time favorites and one of the most talented people I've ever known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, and he's a very awakened guy, but we're going to stroke his ego a little bit.
So come see all of us. We'd love to have you.
thanks. Al Bondar on the far left, Jake Allen in the middle. I'm Steve Sander. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening.
Good day.